Hello and welcome back to From the Source podcast, episode 22. And today is a bit of a shorter one. I know last week I promised that it would be a short one, but this one actually will be a short one because I've just been doing a bit of reading this week about just things in general and books I've been reading on the Kindle. And then I ended up just going down like a bit of a Strava research type path. So this one's going to be a bit more researchy, a bit shorter, but basically, obviously, I talk about Strava quite a lot, but it's Strava, a few new features that I've seen that have come out recently that I don't know if people will use, but it's probably going to be more aimed at if you're using premium and stuff for like in-depth data that people need. So it's about like using those numbers to benefit you, but not being dictated by them, but being aware of them at the same time. So today's episode is about the training zones that people will see on the Strava app. And with that is obviously the training zones that you'll see for runners and cycling. So some of this I'm going to cover in like about cyclists as well. But because if you're doing a running plan and you want to get off your legs sometimes, you can obviously just go on a bike and get the same workout as running, but obviously on the bike, not hammering your legs. So obviously most people probably watching this will know about the training zones. So obviously within the app, there's like a dashboard that shows your training zones. And in that, it shows like your heart rate, your pace, and like your best power zones, if you will, from the workouts, from the week. There's a full-on breakdown in there. So it allows you to understand your training for that week. And maybe when you feel like you need to ease off, the app will tell you like, or confirm what you already know. And then obviously you can use that training load to like ramp up your training plans going forward. And then a new kind of feature they've started is like power skills, it's called. So this is only for cycling, but it kind of shows you what you're doing within those sessions or within those weeks. So it'll tell you about if you're sprinting, if you're attacking, if you're climbing, and using all that historical data that you have that you can use as like benchmarks, like going forward. So obviously this relates to age and gender and stuff, but it's only for cycling at the minute. So I would probably think that they would integrate it with runners, but you'd have to probably wear more wearables because this will go off the, I can't really call it, the little digit dials and whatever that cyclists have on the bikes that track the power output and stuff. But if you're doing this on like maybe a C2 bike and stuff, you can maybe use that data to help you with it. So those are like two little features. One, training zone that people probably will be aware of, and the power skills, which is just mainly for the cyclists. So there's a lot more like data and stuff. If you go on like the Strava website, it does show you a lot of diagrams and images about that. And then why does using these training zones matter? What are the benefits and what are the risks? And in loads of previous episodes I've talked about Strava. And these zones are like perfect for beginners. You're just starting off. You don't know how fast you can run, like if you're running this pace, what does this mean? How should this feel? And all those things. So like those training zones make it obvious about what zones you're running in, and then you plan how you want to do that workout or what your goals want to be. When I'm saying, or other people are saying like zone 2s, what is a zone 2? Lower end of the heart rate, just plodding on, just getting your cardiovascular system used to that training. So you'll do most of your easy runs in this zone, and then obviously learning about the other zones that you've got going on will benefit you in terms of like tempos and intervals and like threshold training. So they're really good to make you aware of like what zones you need to be running in, because I see a lot of people that have just started training that will just go out for a run, and if they actually were to wear a watch or anything, they would probably see that they are running way out of the zone that they think they need to be running in. They'll say, I'm just going out for a zone 2, and you check, I can even just know it off the split times without even looking at the zones that, that you're running way over, and just like heart rates obviously linked to this zone. So it's about running and it being beneficial to your training, not just like blasting yourself each time, because you'll just, like I spoke about, you'll just completely conk out and nothing will benefit you going forward. So the zones are also good for like trend tracking, and so there's no guesswork involved. So you can see the trends of like the weeks when you're in like your 3 or 4 weeks of your hard training, then you deload. You can add it all together. You can change like which zones you want to run in. Obviously, you want to look at specific like zone 1, zone 2s, or if you want to like train and do you think you're running a threshold, and you look at your zones and you're like, well, actually, I'm not. It's hard, but I'm actually running in like zone 5, which, you're killing yourself off. So it's just about using these zones and all these trends and all this data. And this is the thing, like, it's all this data is good if you're really into your running, but if you're just starting off, it can be like a bit of it will make your head explode, and it also can put you off the running at the same time. So it's just using this to your advantage, but not overwhelming yourself with the training. But obviously all of this, the risk of all this being in the right zones and stuff like that is obviously like when I finished using my Garmin, I had all my zones. But then when I moved over to the Coros, you had to upload all of your specific zones because it'll just give you a standard 30-odd-year-old zones for what a runner should be based on like beginner, medium, or advanced. So there's like bad inputs into the system, bad data put in, then there'll be bad outputs because you're not running in your correct zone, not just what Coros have decided to set for you based on your age. So if you've got the wrong max heart rate in, if you've got the wrong threshold in, if you're using a Coros app and you go onto like the web like system they've got, you can see all this in like great detail. If it's the wrong thing and it's going to tell me to run my threshold at 450 per K, then I run that and you're like, that's actually a zone 2, so I'm not even doing what I'm meant to be doing. So get the right data in, and all that can obviously throw off your training, but in your heart of hearts, you'll know that if it's telling me to run that 450 pace, that isn't beneficial. If I was going to use like the RPE scale, which I've spoke about on like previous episodes, sorry, someone's just texted about training. You use the RPE, you'll know that obviously if it's not very high, you're not like putting enough effort in. So it's also off like the feel as well as like the data. Like I said, about how to apply these zones, and it all starts at getting that data in, that raw data to start with, get that baseline in, and then that stuff that you can like tweak and change as part of your training plan that you've got going on. So rechecking these, testing these. Coros is great for like the apps and stuff that it's got like I can't remember what they call it now. You get like the running test. It might even just be an RPE test, but like the cycling, the running test. So it's good to test those. Good to test like your 5K time trial, your 1Ks, all them splits to see if like you're improving and stuff, and use that data alongside the physical data that you're getting from like wearables, and then log in that with on Coros. You can have, it'll show you like what did that workout feel like. So like really hard, average, whatever. Log in all that, and that'll then give you a big enough picture to be like, I can train better here, or that should have been slower and I ran too quick. So it's about using all this data to build into your plan, and then, your weekly plans, like I've said before, you want to be training like 4 running sessions a week, 2 easy runs, like a quality interval session, and then 1 long zone 2 easy run as well, building that cardiovascular in. So those are all the zones that you want to be like picking out and running to, and those long zone 2 runs will feel long and boring, but you need to also do that as well. You can't expect to run hard for 10K if you can't run like slow for 15. You've got to get your body used to running those distances. And this will be the same for the cycling. When I don't run and you hit the bike instead, kind of cycle twice as far as what you were going to run, but staying in those zones. There's no point doing a threshold pace on a bike instead of doing a long zone 2. Make sure it marries up, make sure it's the same. And in a nutshell, that's basically all I had without boring the lives off people about like training zones and Strava and other bits. This is like a new little phasey bit that I'm just looking at, maybe adding a few of these type episodes in and just changing it up a little bit. Part of like new content that I'm looking at talking about. Most of the content like I speak about is people's socials that I see that's just a bit of inspiration that I just try and lump together an episode with. And then I've actually found some FAQs that I found on Strava and Reddit and stuff. So it's a common one is that when you look at your watch, it says you're running the wrong zone. To say you're meant to be doing a zone 2 and it says like you're in zone 4, heart rate's high and everything. Some things that people don't factor in is like, where are you running? Is it hot? Is it cold? Have you just run up some hills? Are you already knackered from the week before? Is your body taking a battering? Is your device like your watch or your like heart rate monitor people wear around their arms or their chest? Is that tight enough? Is that too tight? My Coros sometimes doesn't work if I've got like a really sweaty wrist. It like perhaps it starts to slide around my wrist and stuff, so that doesn't detect the zones right. But this is where you need to be chucking in like your RPE, how does it feel, common sense of where you're running. If you're running through the desert and you're red hot and your heart rate's high, it's probably because of that, not because you're just running. And another one is that obviously the devices, your watch doesn't match up to what Strava says and stuff. So obviously there's a big common thing about like the Strava tax where it takes a little bit off your run. So if you ran like 10k on the dot, it'll show like 9.9. But you've ran 10. It depends if you're really asked about what your mates see and teasing you about that. And well, there was like people were talking about like obviously privacy and like wanting to be on leaderboard and stuff, but obviously you need to make sure you've set your profile to the right settings on the privacy to display all like the data that you want to be on the leaderboards and stuff. So that's just a little thing to bear in mind. There was quite a lot of people on like Reddit forums talking about why no one can see their data, and it's just as simple as you've not allowed to share people your data. So that's just a little thing. But yeah, that's just like a brief snapshot of Strava training zones. Like I said last week, potentially got like a new website coming or our website coming for the podcast. Looking at doing like more of the same content, but maybe doing more in detail. And I'm going to stick to running, high rocks, like strength and weights and training and stuff like that. Maybe not going to go towards like the CrossFit side of things. It's training that I've done before, but it's not something that I fully enjoy. I feel like some of the workouts, but I couldn't train like the full CrossFit life. So there's going to be, like I said, same topics, but more in detail, and going to chuck out more content, more videos on all socials. TikTok's doing well and YouTube's doing well, getting more views and stuff. So just going to keep trying to nail that down. So if you've reached this far and you've listened to me babble on this long, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the channel so far. So apart from that, I'll see you on the next one.